You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
Thanks for sitting in for Sarah today.
Oh, my pleasure.
It is, it's good to have some time, and I know that you're going to be excited about the topic on deck for today. I know this is something that you've studied some and want to study in-depthly more in an advanced degree. So, and we're so glad you're on board here. And I guess I need to give it away here. We're going to talk about the Gospel Outreach with Media Conference with Dr. Tom Kuster again today. It's an annual event from our friends at Bethany Lutheran College in Mankato, Minnesota. And it's just been a fun topic to visit each year. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for your support of the Coffee Hour.
Live uncommon. I talked over you. I was so excited about saying it.
Yeah, thank you, Concordia University, Wisconsin. We are so appreciative of your support. And yes, live uncommon is what it's all about at Concordia, Wisconsin. All right. So joining us today, Dr. Thomas Kuster. He's Executive Director for the Christ in Media Institute at Bethany Lutheran College, and here to chat with us about the Gospel Outreach with Media online conference. Dr. Kuster, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
It's a pleasure to be with both of you. Thanks for inviting me.
So it's been at least a year. Did we get to meet last year? The last year is a blur for me. Did we get to talk about the Gospel Outreach Conference last year?
I remember sitting with you in your wonderful studio, talking with you, and you graced me with one of those really nice worldwide KFUO T-shirts, and I wear that often.
One of those comfy T-shirts. Yeah. Well, we're so glad that you got to come to St. Louis for a little field trip and spend some time with us in studio. That was fun. I think that was probably 2 years ago. I feel like last October we were working remotely. So, well, let's chat about the Gospel Outreach with Media Conference. What is the Gospel Outreach with Media Conference for our listeners not familiar with that?
Well, as the name suggests, it's a conference focusing on how people in various vocations have used various kinds of media to reach out with the gospel. And the conference is entirely online. It's open for discussion for 3 weeks. It opened this morning, as a matter of fact, for 3 weeks. And we have 18 presentations this year. Each of them has connected with it a discussion thread. So people can read the presentations or view them. We have a couple of video presentations, and then type in a question or a comment in the discussion thread. And we've asked the presenters to watch for those and respond to them. So for 3 weeks, that discussion option is open, and it generates some very interesting, lengthy discussions each year. And then after 3 weeks, we close the discussion and archive the conference and the discussions, and those are kept online. So we have 6 past years of the Gospel Outreach with Media conferences archived, and we're underway in the 7th year right now.
That's beautiful. I love the use of technology to talk about technology being used for the gospel. I think that's absolutely beautiful.
It fits.
I was looking through some of the past conferences, and it looks like there have been sessions ranging from stained glass all the way up to virtual reality. Can you talk about some of the different types of technologies being used for the gospel that we'll see in the conference?
As luck would have it, we have sessions this year on stained glass, as well as on virtual reality. But we expand the notion of media quite broadly in our conference. When people hear media, often they think about electronics, and that's appropriate because, you have the internet and you have the various electronic gadgets that all of us are so fond of. But we've expanded that because we've talked about cloth. Using the medium of cloth, people put Christian messages into cross-stitch, for example, and that gets passed on to the next generation. Think of wedding dresses and baptismal gowns that are passed on and become testimonies of faith to the next generation. We've talked about stone. I think you and I both have ancestors that had professions of faith carved on their tombstones, and those are witnesses to us, their descendants, for generations to come, long after those people are in heaven. And there are Christian messages carved out of wood. We even know about gospel testimony showing up in frosting on cakes. So we have a wide definition of media. And so in this conference, we have the usual technology. We have our section on virtual reality. We have a presentation on using Christian messages on micro memory chips that are inserted into cell phones and world mission fields and so on. But we have several presentations this time on glass. Stained glass has been testifying to the faith for more than 1,000 years. And so many of our churches feature beautiful windows that tell the story of salvation. And I don't know, is stained glass going out of fashion? I hope not. I hope
not.
I hope new windows are going in all the time. And our featuring of glass, and in some cases paintings in the sanctuaries, is a not so subtle suggestion that more churches should think about commissioning artwork for their worship spaces.
I think that's so beautiful because historically speaking, the Christian church has been on the forefront of using new technologies, whatever they are, to share the gospel and spread the gospel. And I think it's just a great message seeing how that's been done throughout the years and thinking about new ways we can do that. So who comes to the conference, or who attends the conference? Is it typically pastors, lay people? What's the range, and where are they coming from around the world?
Well, we have marketed the conference heavily to students. We want the young people, our good Christian young people, to be thinking about how they can use their special talents and their interests, whatever they might be in school, whatever their major might be. We want them to know that they can be directly involved in mission work. And so we're trying to point out different ways of doing that. And we get a good part of our audience as students. But we also have all kinds of people, I guess, from around the world. Our past conferences have been visited at latest count by people from 148 different countries.
Wow.
We never know who's going to be visiting. And for that reason, we feature at the beginning of each conference a statement of our faith that was penned by our good friend, Pastor Harsted, Professor Harsted, I should say, who wrote this while he was battling terminal cancer about 5 or 6 years ago. And he made a wonderful profession of faith, and with the permission of his family and the religion department at Bethany, for which he taught, we've featured that statement of faith at the beginning of each conference. So not only are we focusing on how to convey the message, but we want people to know what the message is.
How have participants taken what they've learned in these conferences and put them into practice? And I know that some of the presenters have been practicing what it is they're presenting on, but have others who have attended the conference taken what they've learned and put it into practice in some way? Have you received feedback on that?
One of our favorite things is noting how sometimes people who visit the conference pick up on an idea and form collaborations with the presenters. These are people from around the world who maybe have never met each other before and wouldn't have except for the conference, but then they discover in the conference that they have an interest in common. And so they join up and produce something. An example of that is Professor Ted Peterson, who teaches in communication courses down in Florida, proposed in a conference a few years ago a podcast that would feature Christian stories. And he talked about that dream in a conference a few years ago, and a couple of people picked up on that and collaborated with him, and now they have created a series of, I think there are now 4 or 5 podcasts that tell Christian stories under the heading of The Lost Coins. And they're available. In fact, I imagine if you wished, you could be using those on the radio if you had have some space for them somewhere, sometime. But they're after the fashion of the public broadcast program, This American Life. You might be familiar with it.
One of my favorites.
Yes, I don't know how many times I've been in my car listening to one of those stories, and I arrive at my destination and I just sit in the parking lot because I can't leave the car until I've heard the rest of the story.
That's the sign of an engaging story, right?
Yeah.
Right. So modeled after that, Ted Peterson has created a series of these Christian broadcasts called The Lost Coins, and they're fascinating. And that's an example of something that a collaboration that grew out of one of our past conferences.
Well, I see in this year's conference, you have a presenter very familiar to us, the Reverend Brian Wolfmiller, speaking on or presenting on internet outreach. What can you share with us about what he will be sharing this year?
Well, we were really pleased to be able to arrange an interview with Brian and ask him a few questions about what he does and how he does it, and at the same time provide some links to some of his really fantastic internet sites. And so he talks, we try to be a little techie sometimes, and so because we expect that in our audience. And so we ask him about what kinds of programs, what kind of software, what kind of hardware he uses, and he outlines some of that. But primarily he's talking about his kind of his philosophy, might even call it a theology of internet use. And of course, he's doing it with the Lord's blessing very successfully. And we're happy to have him as part of this conference.
He certainly does it well. And when you ask the question, how does he do it? I'm not quite sure. I don't think he sleeps. When you look at the amount of content the man produces and the parishes that he serves as well, and the ways that he carries the work that the Lord has given him as a parish pastor, I'm not sure when he sleeps. He just produces such great content. Well, we have more to learn about the Gospel Outreach with Media Conference. Today we're talking with the Reverend Dr. Thomas Kuster, his Executive Director for the Christ in Media Institute at Bethany Lutheran College, and we'll share more in just a moment. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
And we are talking with the Reverend Dr. Thomas Kuster. He's Executive Director for the Christ in Media Institute at Bethany Lutheran College. And that's in Mankato, Minnesota, up north. And Minnesota. And we are just delighted to talk about the Gospel Outreach with Media Conference. It's an online conference going on right now, and it's an annual conference, and so much to learn. You think about Gospel Outreach with Media, and you think, oh yeah, that's what we do here at KFUO. But then talking with Dr. Kuster today and seeing it's just even broader than what we think of as media, because it's all types of media. So, Dr. Kuster, you were sharing with us a little bit about some of the guests. We were talking about Pastor Wolfmiller being on the conference this year. Who are some of the other presenters that are part of the conference this year?
Well, in line with our broad definition of media, one of the most interesting presentations was by, again, one of our favorite presenters who's been on before. He's talked about virtual reality, but this time Dr. Brian Klebig is talking about toys for outreach. That's a medium I never would have thought of for doing mission work. But he has a really gripping presentation about how that can be done. In other presentations, we have several presentations on virtual reality. One pastor is trying it out in his confirmation class in very preliminary ways to help his students visit places that would be of interest to anyone studying the life of Christ.
Virtual reality for confirmation class?
Yes.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yes.
They have like the coolest pastor in the world.
I agree.
Wow,
I agree.
that's crazy.
I've had several conversations with him. And of course, it's still preliminary, and he's trying it out, and he's learning what works, and he's learning some things that don't work. But he talks about that, and I think this is one of those presentations that's going to invite some collaboration and discussion about how other people might try this out and learn together. Our education department at Bethany Lutheran College has used virtual reality for training their teachers. And one of the professors there is talking about that experience. And then we have a recent graduate from the seminary who wrote his MDiv thesis, Dominic Olson, who wrote his MDiv thesis on using virtual reality in a congregational setting. And again, that's preliminary. People are just trying that out. But again, I hope this invites some comment, collaboration, and other people's experiences if they decide to try this too.
I absolutely love that. It's beautiful because we all have very different learning styles and experiences and these different ways of using technology to reach out to people. It's beautiful. I also can't help but notice that your conference was beautifully poised for the COVID pandemic to be able to continue to share the gospel through media. Can you speak to how this conference might have addressed that issue in the past, or how it equipped pastors and lay people during the pandemic, and how that might be useful in other situations?
As you know, the pandemic forced many congregations, could we say almost all congregations, to go into some kind of a streaming format to serve the people who weren't able to attend worship in person, something that's always preferable, but was made very difficult for a lot of people during this past year and a half or so, still is for some people. Our conference talked about streaming a couple of years before the COVID crisis struck. We talked about streaming in world languages. There are streaming worship services in a variety of languages in our Lutheran churches around the country and around the world, and we had a session on where those could be found a few years ago. We had a session I think last year, about captioning, closed captioning streamed services, and where the technology is on furnishing captioning to follow the audio on those streamed services. So this is something we've found people who have been becoming experts on it, and we've tried to feature them in past conferences.
Now, you're presenting this year as well. Can you tell us about the topic of your presentation?
Well, this is another major project of the Christ in Media Institute, the XR project and festival, and I have a little article on that in the conference. But it's another venture in which we try to engage students, especially high school students, to explore XR, which stands for extended reality. It's an umbrella term that embraces virtual reality, augmented reality. Sometimes people talk about mixed reality. These various technologies are mushrooming now in our culture. And we want to get on top of that on behalf of the Lord and the gospel, and figure out how that can be used for gospel outreach. And we found in the past that the best way to figure out how emerging technology can be used for the Lord is to ask the kids. We have good Christian young people who are very tech savvy on their phones and in many other ways. And when we ask them, okay, how do you think we could put this to use for the gospel? In the past, we've come up with some really excellent ideas from them. So we're farming that idea out to high school students this fall in what we call the XR project, asking schools to form teams of students to explore extended reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, learn as much as they can about how it works, and then ask the question, how can we use this for the gospel? And then that will culminate next spring on April 1st and 2nd. We've scheduled the XR Festival at Bethany Lutheran College, where these teams of students are invited to come and tell us what they've learned, along with some other speakers and experts that we've invited to explore how, in this festival, how extended reality can be used both in education and in outreach.
That is amazing. It's so beautiful reaching out to the youth and getting their input and what they see the future is. That is amazing. And I didn't even know extended reality was a term. I'm going to have to explore that now. That is awesome. You've got me so excited about the conference and about your previous conferences. How can I participate? What do I need to do? Can I look at the old conferences also? How do I engage?
Great questions. And it's very easy to participate. First of all, the conference that's open now, you can reach by going online and finding this address, www.gowm.org. That GOWM stands for Gospel Outreach with Media. And I have to warn people because my spelling checker always tries to change that to GOWN. And if you go there, you can buy a prom dress, but it won't tell you much about the gospel outreach aspect. So it's GOWM.org. And that opens up this year's conference. You can find the presenters there. You click on a link and read the presentation, and then it invites you to comment or ask questions if you want to. It's free. It's entirely online. As we say, this is a conference that you don't have to travel or rent a motel. You can attend this conference in your pajamas. And many people expect to do that. And on that page, there are also links to previous conferences. It's easy to get to those. Again, those are closed to discussion, but all the presentations and previous discussions are archived there. And I'm glad you referred to those because there's still a lot of very relevant and useful material in those previous conferences as well. So GOWM.org, you can go there right now, but don't wait till this program is over and then go there and participate in the conference.
I think we opened up a rabbit hole for
oh, yeah. I've got a week off of school. This is perfect, though. So.
He's already writing out the outline for his dissertation. Well, it's just a great way to connect with others, too, who are interested in using various types of media, whether it's digital media or other media, as you pointed out earlier, stained glass, fabric, all those different media to be a witness, to share a gospel message as well. You mentioned that it's free, that it's online. Are the presentations, are they synchronous, asynchronous? How do we hear or participate or view the presentations?
Okay, let's get technical. They're asynchronous. The presenters have written or prepared their presentations, and we've put them on this website where people can reach them by going to www.gowm.org. And we expect people, visitors to the conference, will read or view the presentations, and then, if they wish, type in a comment or a question in the space that invites them to do that. And we hope that the presenters will check in once in a while. They won't be waiting breathlessly at any moment, but they'll check in once every couple of days, I expect, and see what comments or questions are there, and we'll reply to them. And this can go on. As we said, the conference is open for 3 weeks. And usually we find that for the first few days till midweek now, people are just reading and thinking of things they'd like to say. But after that, the comments start to come in and the discussions start to go back and forth. And by the end of the second week or so, there are some very interesting long threads of discussion on the various topics that are presented.
And this is continuing. The Gospel Outreach with Media Conference is continuing through November 8th. You can go to GOWM.org to participate. Our guest today, the Reverend Dr. Thomas Kuster, Executive Director for the Christ in Media Institute at Bethany Lutheran College, and the Gospel Outreach with Media online conference going on right now. Dr. Kuster, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Pastor James Cleland.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support The Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.